UFC matches are intense tests of physical strength, endurance, and agility, so it makes sense that fighters sitting in on post-fight conferences would be a little out of it. Most times, this doesn't necessarily have too much of an effect on the interviews, but at times, it can lead to some hilarious moments, which we're going to go over in today's video. Let's get started with Derrick Lewis needs a nap. Derrick Lewis is a huge heavyweight fighter that's been in the game since 2014. He's put down some heavy hitters over the past decade and holds the record for the most knockouts in UFC history. That reputation has earned him the nickname the Black Beast. But even beasts need some shut-eye from time to time. Unfortunately for Lewis, his moment of slumber has become immortalized on the internet. This came shortly after his fight against Roy Nelson in 2016 at UFC Fight Night 90. It was a grueling match that came down to a close split decision in Lewis's favor, so the Black Beast was understandably a little tuckered out. That didn't stop him from attending his post-fight conference though, where fighters normally discuss the strategies and moments that were instrumental in their downfall or victory. Except Lewis didn't use the platform for that, opting instead to put down his head to get some well-deserved shut-eye. The conference went on, with him just resting his head down on his arm upon the table, until someone came up behind him to gently wake him up. We wouldn't be caught saying this in front of him, but that was a really cute moment. Next up is Rockhold squares off with Bisping in a verbal battle. Post-fight conferences are usually pretty tame, but once in a while, the heat just gets too high. It makes sense that two fighters who have poured their blood, sweat, and tears into a bout would have some anger directed towards each other after the fact. But what happened between Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping after UFC 199 could have easily been avoided. It was a middleweight championship match, and Rockhold was defending the title. After he had lost the fight, he was asked at the conference if losing to Bisping was particularly painful. What followed was Rockhold admitting that was the case because he felt Bisping was disrespectful, and in his words, a maggot. That's how things kicked off. Bisping walked onto the panel with a grin on his face, taking Rockhold's words in stride, no doubt riding the high of being the new UFC middleweight champion. But when Rockhold pushed some more, saying more expletives, Bisping pushed back with his own insults, though still being respectful of the former's skill and abilities. It was a short but funny moment watching the two of them spar, and we're glad that tensions cooled later on in the conference. Now we have Paddy Pimblett hungers. Pimblett has been fighting since the age of 16 and has just become one of the top upcoming MMA talents in the world, thanks to his performance at the UK UFC Fight Night in March this year. He took down veteran Rodrigo Vargas in a lightweight fight that really excited fans, as well as UFC head Dana White. Paddy was certainly over the moon following that bout, and his giddy demeanor in the post-fight conference was fun to watch. But what really needs highlighting here is that when the conference initially began, Paddy was scarfing down a thick slice of pizza with pretty much all the toppings you could dream of. Fighting in the octagon's gotta take a lot out of a man, so we guess he was trying to get his energy up. Regardless, Pimblett showed no signs of slowing down after the tough fight with Vargas, and despite constantly stuffing his face with that slice of pizza, was able to get out full answers to the media's questions. It's actually really funny watching him take the conference so seriously, while at the same time going hard on that slice, and even more so when you realize the man put on a ridiculous 45 pounds in the 2 weeks that followed this win. And now on to Dana White made Ngannou sad. Following a 3-round bout with Cyril Gane, Francis Ngannou was given the title of UFC heavyweight champion earlier this year. It was a close call in each round, but Ngannou managed to win the fight with a unanimous decision. The atmosphere was fairly relaxed, with Cyril Gane being pretty graceful in his defeat and loss of the heavyweight belt. Ngannou himself, at the press conference that followed, was in high spirits, smiling and responding eagerly to everyone's questions. That is, until one interviewer brought up Dana White. Apparently, White, who is quite close with all of the fighters under him in the UFC, had to leave to deal with issues backstage during the co-main event and didn't end up returning. That left Mick Maynard, the UFC matchmaker, to don Ngannou with the title belt. This honor is usually reserved for Dana White, so it came off as a slight snub. It's even more damning that Ngannou's current status at the UFC is up in the air, since the Cameroonian hasn't been able to strike up a new deal with the organization. Despite that, Ngannou still kept his head high during the conference. Then came that question. Ngannou wasn't aware that Dana White hadn't even attended the press conference, so when he heard the interviewer say that, his face very visibly went from a wide grin to a neutral expression, and then a little bit of a frown. The suddenness of the changes in expression over the course of mere seconds was, in our opinion, a bit funny, though we admit we also do feel sorry for Ngannou, as he definitely deserved better after his huge fight. Next up is Ricky Tertius wants to sing. At UFC Vegas 35, Ricky Tertius took on Brady Heistand in a bout that would determine the bantamweight winner of The Ultimate Fighter Season 29. It was a hard-fought match, with no round coming easy for Tertius, but he made it through to the end and won with only one judge ruling in favor of high stand. Following that amazing fight, Ricky took to the panel at the post-fight press conference to celebrate. His celebration of choice? Karaoke. Yep, you heard that right. He had the toy microphone, and all that was left were the lyrics and the groove. He used his phone to look up the lyrics as he stood in front of the media, pouring his heart and soul into Lynyrd Skynyrd's Free Bird. It's not just the fact that he's singing at a conference, but how deeply he's into it and the intense expressions he has on his face. It's a moment that we can't forget, and once you see it, you'll likely never be able to erase it from your memory either. Now that we've gone over some of the funniest press conferences we can think of, we should also go over some of the funniest interviews that have been conducted after the fights. Derek Lewis needs to cool off. We have to say, Derek Lewis really knows how to make people laugh. Whether he's doing it intentionally or he's just a naturally funny guy, he can't go a minute without saying something hilarious. After his match with Alexander Volkov at UFC 229, in which he knocked down the Russian shortly before he was about to lose due to point differences, Lewis would do something that's pretty much unheard of in, well, any sort of fighting ring. Exhausted, Lewis pulled down his shorts right in the middle of the octagon. It was a moment that must have shocked everyone in the audience that day. That in itself is pretty darn funny, but we argue what came next is even funnier. Joe Rogan, the MC of the UFC, asked him why he'd done what he did, to which the Black Beast replied into the microphone that his nether regions were hot. Of course, we're taking out a lot of the color of his words, which originally were enough to get the crowd to die from laughter. He continued on to say that Donald Trump had specifically told him to take out Volkov because the Russians were making him look bad on the news. It's utter nonsense, and we love him for it. Keep doing what you do, Derek Lewis. McGregor is a belt short. McGregor is no stranger to trash talk, and back when he was at the top of his game, he was probably the best at it. At UFC 205, one of the biggest events in UFC history, McGregor knocked out then lightweight champion Eddie Alvarez, becoming the first ever UFC double champion. That fight got him the lightweight championship belt, and he had already won the featherweight championship belt prior to that fight. So when it came time to receive his award in the octagon, McGregor just had to be a little cheeky. He screamed out, saying that he already had the lightweight championship belt, asking the audience where his other one was, taunting Alvarez and hyping himself up. As he was awarded his second belt by Dana White, he took the opportunity to apologize to nobody. What a man. McGregor is certainly one of a kind, and he definitely knows how to get a crowd excited. That's a wrap for this video. Know of any other hilarious post-fight press conference moments? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.